Hi everyone, Savannah Tree Foundation Field Manager Jake Henry here, and we're going to do a quick little video today on how to prune with a handsaw. We're going to use a certain technique called the three-step cut. So when we talk about pruning branches off of trees, it can serve a lot of purposes. Typically we do it to remove dead or diseased branches, then we can use it to kind of shape the form of the tree or help sort of just lift the canopy up. So today we're looking at this dogwood here, this flowering dogwood, and we're going to remove this branch. Now, typically when you prune a tree, you want to prune the branches as small as possible to help reduce the impacts on the tree. When we prune, it does create a wound on the tree, so the smaller that wound is, the easier it is to heal over. So this is a pretty good sized branch. It's a little bit too big for hand pruners, so that's why we're using the saw today. And we're going to do what's called a three-step cut. So first we're going to make a cut that's a little ways out from where we want our final cut, and we're going to do that on the underside of the branch. Then our second cut is going to be outside of that on the top, and that's going to let us remove most of the branch. It's going to take most of the weight off of this. And then what we can do is our final cut here so that we can kind of clean it up and remove the entirety of the branch. Now we do it here because this is where the branch bark ridge is. And that's a term where essentially it's sort of swollen here and where the trunk meets the branch. So that tissue is growing together. Now we really don't want to cut into that because it's going to create a larger wound than we need to, and it's going to make it harder for the tree to heal over. If we do that, we're sort of cutting into the cambium of the tree itself, and we really want to avoid that. We want to stick to the branch. So we'll start with our first cut, which is going to be a little ways out from here. Now remember, sharp tools, always be safe. Make sure that you're being careful with them. So we'll make our first cut right about here on the underside of the tree. And you don't have to go very far, maybe a third of the way or halfway at most, just enough so that you've gone through all the bark. And really what this technique allows us to do is to not tear the bark. We're removing this weight because if we just did one cut here, it could tear this bark and damage the tree past where we want to prune it. So this really helps us make sure that we get a nice clean cut at the end. So then we take our second cut outside of this first cut. Oh, and it wants to take a little bit more, so we'll have to cut through there. And sometimes it doesn't come off all the way. So we can do a second cut here. There we go. All right, so even on a less than ideal three-step cut, it still didn't peel any of that bark. That's perfect. That's exactly what we want. Ideally, it sort of just pops right off, but even if it pulls a little bit like that, you can still sort of make it work. So now that we have most of the weight off of this branch, there's hardly anything here, we can do our third clean cut here. Now again, we've got our sort of branch bark ridge here, and we want to go at a right angle. So we want to go directly across at the branch here. You can just start on the top and make your way all the way through. Okay, so we've got a nice straight cut, and we do that because if you cut it at an angle, that just makes that surface even wider. It makes it an oval. This circle is the smallest wound you can make, and so this will make it easy for this tree to heal over and eventually enclose this wound. And we just have this little chunk here, not so much weight. So that's how you do a three-step cut, and that's a really great technique for something that's a little bit too big for pruners, but not quite big enough for a handsaw. So thank you all so much for watching, and stay tuned for more videos. Take care.